Hey everybody, and welcome to the corner. So we're at the table now and we're going to be making a baby blanket today, but you can also use this pattern to make a blanket as large as you want to. You're just going to keep going. I'm going to give you quite a few rows, so make sure you have the pattern and understanding, and then you can just grow it as large as you want to. But I will come back in and show you how we're going to switch colors. We're going to be starting with this one right here, and this is Red Heart Soft Baby Steps, and there are 256 yards here. This is Burnett Softy Baby yarn, and there are 362 yards, and the white is the same as the first one. Now we'll need a 4mm hook, a yarn needle, and we'll need our scissors. We're going to start with the pink, and I will let you know how much yarn we use for this baby one, because we'll be switching amongst the colors. I might not add the white in, but we'll see. Now we're going to go ahead and begin with this pink, and this is just going to be a 2-row repeat. I want to simply, again, leaving an end to weave in later. I am going to begin with a chain 4. Right, now I'm going to go into the first chain, grab my yarn, and pull through on the other end, creating a slip stitch. Now I want to chain up 4, 2, 3, and 4. That 4 holds for a double crochet and a chain 1. Now I want to yarn over, and I'm going to go back into my circle, and I'm going to make a double crochet. Now we want to chain 1 again, and I'm going back into my circle and make another double crochet. I want to do this all the way around, chain 1 and make a double crochet back into the circle until I have 8 double crochets. Now remember, the first chain 4 we did stands as a double crochet and a chain 1. So chain 1, I have 4 now. That's 5 and chain 1, and 6 double crochets and chain 1, and 7 double crochets and chain 1, and my last one, 8 double crochets, and we're going to chain 1. So we should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 double crochets, all separated by a chain 1. So now on our chain 4 here, we want to count up 1, 2, 3, and then to the third chain from where we began, we want to slip stitch. Now that is our first row. Now we have our first row done, so we're going to slip stitch into that chain 1 space. Okay, and now we're going to chain up 3. 1, 2, 3. Now that's going to stand as our first double crochet. Now we're going to yarn over and go back into the space and put 6 double crochet here, all into that same space, creating our first shell. So now we have our first shell, and all total with our chain 3 we have 7 double crochets. Now in our next chain 1 space, we want to go in there and place a single crochet. Our next chain 1 space, we're going to go inside there and put 7 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So now we have our second shell, and to the next chain 1 space we want to go in there and put a single crochet. Next chain 1 space we want to go in and place 7 double crochets to make our next shell. And 7. Our next chain 1 space we want to go in there and we want to make a single crochet. Our next chain 1 space we want to go in there and place our 7 double crochets. 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And our last chain 1 space we want to go inside there and place a single crochet. And now we have 4 shells, and we're going to slip stitch into that chain 3 that we started with. We want to go right through the third one at the top and slip stitch there. All right, so this is our first shell row, and these you'll see will become our corners. Okay, to begin row 3 we're going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. We're then going to double back and go to the single crochet right here. Okay, and we're going to make a double crochet there. And now we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. We're going to go right back into that single crochet and place a double crochet. We're going to chain 1. We're going to yarn over and we're going to go right back into that same space and put another double crochet. Now this is how we're going to work our corners. This row being all corners, we're going to be working this all the way around. So once we have that done, we want to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now we want to yarn over into the next single crochet. We want to go inside and make a double crochet. We're going to chain 1, yarn over and go right back into that single crochet with a double crochet. Now we're going to chain 1, 2, and 3. Going to yarn over. We're going to go back into that double crochet, that single crochet, and make a double crochet. Chain 1, yarn over and go back into that same stitch and make another double crochet. So what we're doing is, for our corners, we're making a V-stitch, chaining 3, and making another V-stitch. So let's keep going. Now we want to chain 5 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Going to yarn over. We're going to find our next single crochet. We're going to go in there and make a double crochet. chain 1, go back and place another double crochet, and we have our V-stitch. We're going to chain 3 and then place another V-stitch here. So we're going to go in, make a double crochet, chain 1, and make another double crochet. Again, chain 5. We're going to find our last single crochet. We're going to go in there and do our first V-stitch, chain 1, and another double crochet. We're going to chain 3, and then we're going to go back in and make another V-stitch, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. Now we want to chain 5, and now this one is already done, so we want to go in the top, right, in the top of that chain 3, and we want to place a slip stitch. And that is what I call the foundation row. So we have a row where we're doing shells, and then we have a row where we are making the foundation so we can make our shells, and that is the row with V stitches. Okay, so we're going to keep going. So now we want to slip stitch into our V stitch here, okay, because remember our corners have 2 V stitches with an opening in between, a chain 3. We want to slip stitch into our V stitch and then chain 3. That 3 is going to stand for our first double crochet, and we want to go into our V stitch and make 6 double crochets. So we have our first shell on this row. Okay. Now our chain 3, we want to go in our chain 3 and we want to just make a single crochet. Now we'll go into our other V-stitch from our corner and we'll place 7 double crochets there. Three, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, and this is how our corners will look. Now the chain 5 area, we want to look at the shell right below our chain 5 area, and this is where it begins. So 1, 2, 3, we want to go in between and make a single crochet, and this helps anchor that chain 5 down. Okay, so we want to go, we'll have 3 double crochets on this side and 4 on this side when we place that single crochet in the middle. So now we want to go right into our V-stitch and make another shell. So we'll put 7 double crochets into our V-stitch. 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Our chain 3, we want to go in there and place a single crochet. Now our next V-stitch gets another shell, and that's 7 double crochets. So as you see, all our V stitches are going to get 7 double crochets. And we're back at our chain 5 area, and we're going to anchor this down again. So looking at my shell beneath, we count 1, 2, 3, and in between the third and the fourth one, we're going to go in and place a single crochet. We come back to a V-stitch. So we're going to put our shell inside the V-stitch, our 7 double crochets, three, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Our chain 3 area gets a single crochet, and back to the other V stitch. We'll go into the V stitch and we'll put another shell, 7 double crochets, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Our chain 5 area, we look at the shell beneath, 1, 2, 3. We go in between the third and the fourth one and anchor that chain 5 down with a single crochet. In our last corner, we'll go in the first V stitch and place a shell, 7 double crochets, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Chain 3, gets a single crochet, and our last V stitch will get our shells, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Now our last chain 5, we look at the shell beneath, 1, 2, 3. We're going to go in between the third and the fourth one and anchor that down with a single crochet. Now we want to slip stitch into the third chain from where we begin, and slip stitch. And there we have it. Now this right here is a row, pretty much all our corners. As you see right here, this is what our corners are going to look like. Now we're going to grow it more on this row, and this is our V-stitch row, which is our foundation row for our shells. So we want to begin this row with chaining 4 again. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to yarn over, and we're going to look at our single crochet. It's right here, and we're going to go back and go in there and make a double crochet. Our chain 4 counts as a double crochet in our chain 1, so we have our first V stitch. Now we're going to chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we're going to find our single crochet between our shells, and we're going to go in and place a double crochet. We're going to chain 1 and then go back in and place another double crochet. Now because this is a corner, we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. we're going to go back in here and make another V-stitch. So we're going to make our double crochet, chain 1, and back into the same spot and make another double crochet. Now we'll chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to find our next single crochet between our shells. We're going to yarn over and we're going to go in there and place another V-stitch. So that's double crochet, chain 1, back into that same single crochet and make another double crochet. Okay. And now we're going to chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to go and find our next single crochet here, and we're going to make a V-stitch, chain 1, and go back in and place another double crochet. Now remember, this is our corner, so we have to make what we need to make for our corners. So we'll chain 3 and place another V-stitch here. Double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. Now we'll chain 5 again. We'll find our next single crochet in between our shells, and we'll make a V-stitch. Chain 5. We'll find our next single crochet. We're going to go in there and we're going to make a V-stitch, chain 1, go back in and make another double crochet. Now remember, this too is our corners. This is how our corners look. So we have to chain 3 and go back in and make another V-stitch, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. And now we'll make our chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yarn over. We're going to find our next single crochet in between our shells and place a V-stitch there. And now we'll chain 5 again, and we're at our last corner. So we're going to go into our corner and our single crochet right between the shells, and we'll place 1 V-stitch, chain 3, and go back into that same space and place another V-stitch, chain 1, and make our last double crochet. Now we'll chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're where we begin. So we want to go through the 3rd chain from where we started and slip stitch. So we have completed another row, and now our next row will be making shells again, but we see how we have kept our corners. See, these are our corners, and our corners will keep going out, but the V-stitches in between our corners will grow, and you can see them beginning to grow. Okay, and all of our V-stitches are going to get shells. Our chain 5 area is going to get anchored down in between the 3rd and the 4th double crochet from the shell before it, and our chain 3 area will get a single crochet. So let's go all the way around this one together. Now to begin this row, we want to go inside of our V-stitch and slip stitch. So we're starting out from that point so we can make our shell. So we're going to chain 1, 2, and 3, and that stands as our double crochet for that row. Stands as our double crochet. So now we're going to go inside this one and place 6 more double crochets. 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Our chain 5 area, we're going to go in between the 3rd and the 4th double crochet from the shell below and place our single crochet. Our V-stitch area gets a shell, so we'll place 7 double crochet there. 1, 2, and 7. Our chain 3 is going to get a single crochet. Our next V-stitch is going to get a shell. 2 and 7. Now our chain 5 area, we'll go between the 3rd and the 4th stitches on the shell below and make our single crochet. We have a V-stitch, so our V-stitch will get a shell. Our chain 5 area will follow between the 3 and the 4th. We'll put our single crochet. We have another V-stitch, and we're just going to keep going around this whole row like that. So remember, your V-stitch is going to get a shell. Your chain 3 area, just a single crochet. V-stitch, shell. Chain 5 area, you're going to go between the 3rd and the 4th, double crochet from the shell below and anchor it with a single crochet. And all V-stitches, again, shells. And I'll meet you back up as we finish this corner right here, and we'll move on to the next foundation row so we can go through that again together. Okay. So you guys, I've gone all the way around. I am on my last shell. And now I want to go in between the 3rd and the 4th double crochet from the shell before and make my single crochet. Now that I'm all the way around, we want to slip stitch into the top of the chain 3 we began with. And now we have this row complete. You see we have our corners right here, corners right here, but we have gained extra shells in between our corners. And again, it will keep growing on its own just like that. So let's do this next foundation row together. We're going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Going to yarn over. I'm going to go back to the single crochet that's behind it, and we're going to make a double crochet. Now we have our first V-stitch. We're going to chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And to our single crochet, we want to put a V-stitch here. So everywhere where we have put single crochets, that is where we're putting our V-stitches. We're chaining 5, 2, 3, 4, 5 to get over our shell humps, okay? And we're at a corner, so we're going to go into this single crochet, and we're going to put a V-stitch, chain 3, and another V-stitch, all in that same single crochet. So we maintain our corners. We'll change 5, 4, 5, jump over our shell, find our first single crochet, and make another V-stitch. Chain 5 again, jump over our shell, find our first single crochet, the other side, and make our V-stitch. Chain 5, and we're going to jump over this shell. Now we find ourselves at a corner, and we're going to go into that corner, place V-stitch, chain 3, V-stitch. Chain 5, jump over this shell and find our first single crochet and make our V-stitch. Chain 5, jump over that shell, find your first single crochet and make a V-stitch. Chain 5, jump over this shell and find your first single crochet. This also is a corner, so we're going to make a V-stitch. Chain 1. Now we're going to make our chain 3, go inside there and make another V-stitch. Chain 5, jump over that shell, find our first single crochet and make another V-stitch. Chain 5, and same thing, jump over that shell, find our single crochet and make our V-stitch. Chain 5, we jump over the shell, we're at our last corner, so we're gonna make corners do what they do. V-stitch, chain 3, V-stitch, all in the same stitch. So this is our last chain 5, and then we want to slip stitch into the 3rd chain from where we began. Okay, and our foundation row again. So remember, when you're doing foundation rows, you're only really working into the chain 1 spaces that we have created from the row before, and then we're chaining 5 unless we're at a corner. Okay, now we're going to go inside our V-stitch. We begin this row by going slip stitching inside our V-stitch, because we want to get inside there so we can begin our shell. So we're going to chain 1, 2, and 3, and that stands as our double crochet in here. So we only have to put 6 double crochet into the first one. I'll take you around a little bit just so we can go around our first corner together, and then I think you have it and we'll go on from there. So let's put a shell here, and 7 between the 3rd and the 4th, single crochet, V-stitch, gets a shell, chain 5 area, find the 3rd one, Go in between the third and the fourth, and we place a single crochet in our corners. V-stitch gets a shell, chain 3 gets a single crochet, and V-stitch gets a shell. So you guys, I think we have it. It's going to keep growing, and we're going to keep following these same basic rules on these 2 repeat rows, just like we have been doing. So I'm going to leave you to this masterpiece. It's very simple. You're just going to keep following that. I just want to make sure you understand where your corners are. Your corners are pretty much 2 humps together, and what we do in our corners is only different. Here is most important to remember how we start our rows. We're starting our shell row by slip stitching into the V-stitch, and we're starting our foundation rows by chaining 4, okay, and then doubling back in that first, actually it's the last single crochet, because we're going backwards to get to that single crochet for our foundation rows. So you can think, guys, I think you got it. If you need any help, see me in the comment section, but I will come back in and show you when I am switching colors, how I'm switching colors. Okay, everybody, so I have gone around this thing and made it a little bigger, and I've run out of pink. I was able to complete 9 shell rows, so that's just shell rows. I'm actually on the foundation V-stitch row right now. I'm not switching colors, but I ran out of pink and I want to continue on with pink. So I wanted to show how I am going to add on my same color of pink so I can continue going on. So if you run out and you're on a foundation chain row, you want to change or add on your new color at a double crochet. And even if we're on a shell row, again, we still want to do that during a double crochet. So I'm made my 5 chain of 5, and I need to start my next V-stitch. So I'm going to find my single crochet, and I'm going to start to make my double crochet. So I'm going to take off the first 2. So normally I would yarn over and pull through to take off the last 2, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take my same color and come back in. See, I've added it on my finger, start, and then I'm going to use this to pull through the last 2. I'm going to move this off to the side and chain 1 and yarn over. Now I can finish my V-stitch and finish 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and keep going, and my yarn is attached here, and we'll weave that in when we're finished. So I wanted to show you that how we're going to add on when we run out of our same color, and I'll be back in to show you guys what we're going to do when we're ready to switch and move to a whole nother color. I'm probably going to do a few more rows in the pink before I switch to my next color. Okay, okay, you guys, so I'm coming back in where I am finishing up my 11th row of shells. Okay, so of course we have the foundation row here, but I have 11 rows with shells on it, and I'm going to cut my yarn because I've decided that's where I'm going to stop with my pink. And now I just want to grab my yarn and pull it through. So that's how I'm going to come in and end off with my pink. And now I'm going to bring in my white. Okay, so I am now ready to change my colors. I've already ended off. Now I want to start right there in that chain one. Now normally you see I just ended off here. I would have chained here to begin and then went back to that chain one space, but I'm just going to go ahead and start there since we need to work our stitches from there. So I'm going to add on my yarn with a chain one. And then I'm going to chain 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, yarn over and go back into that chain one space and place my double crochet. Now here's my chain 4, that's my double crochet, and my chain 1 and my double crochet, which is counting as my first V-stitch for that row. And then I will chain 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and I will keep going as we have already established for this row. All of our single crochets, get our V stitches, and we're just chaining 5 until we get to our corners, and our corners of course are going to get what our corners get. Because I'm doing white next, we'll not go any further into the white because I've showed you guys how to establish this pattern. So I'm going to keep going out as many rows as I would like to with the white, and then I'll switch to my gray, and I'll come back in when it's all set and done with and show you guys what I have done. Okay, everybody, so I finished my shell baby blanket. Now I did 21 rows of shells in total. Now we're not counting the foundation rows, just to make it easier for everyone to understand. I'm just counting the shell rows. So there are 21 shell rows total. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 in pink. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in white, and the gray 1, 2, 3, 4 rows in gray. Now with the pink, I only wound up using about I wound up using 1.5 of the skeins in pink, and for the white I wound up using 2 skeins of the white that I had, and for the gray I wound up using 1 and a tiny little, I had to get like 4 or 5 shells done in the second one. So for each color that I used 2, 1.5, 2, and 1.25, just to be safe. So if you're doing 21 rows and baby, I would say, and you're doing the same 3 colors, and you're going to keep it in the rows that I do, I would say have 2 of each color. That way they'll see you through, just in case your tension might be different than mine. So there you go. Anything else, if you want to grow this and keep growing it into a larger blanket, then of course you would need way more yarn, but I'm only talking about yarn usage for this blanket. And I'll put the total number of what 2 skeins of this kind would be, 2 of this one and 2 of that one, just to gauge it, and so you know how much likely you're using for a baby blanket. Now if you're going to do this size. Now that is pretty much it, you guys. When we ended off just like I showed you how we ended off on the pink. You just chain 1, pull through once you're finished with that last shell. So the only thing I have to show you here is how to weave in. Now we have to go to the back side for the weaving in. Okay, now let's look at our pink right here. Now you see where I stopped one and I began another. Where I have 2 same colors, where I stopped one and added another, I like to first place a knot. Okay, I want to just knot that off right there because I hate the thought of weaving it in, and if it's not going to be noticeable, I will place 2, and it won't be, can't even tell that's there, because I hate the thought of anything unraveling once I'm done. I'm going to go ahead and grab my yarn needle and add my yarn to it. Now I just want to go back and forth, staying in the area where I ended, and I'm just going to weave this back and forth, zigzag it, turn it around, and you're going to do that as many times as you take to be secure that your work is not coming out. I always say 3 times, but sometimes I do it more than that. And once I'm finished doing that, I'm just going to cut it all the way at the base. So once I cut, it is not noticeable where I stopped. And I'm going to do it one more time for you. And what I'm doing here, I will do all over the blanket. Of course, if I'm doing white, I want to work in the white area. If I'm doing gray, I want to work in the gray. And because I'm doing the pink, I will stay only in the pink area. And that is it. I'm going to leave this one. It's my last place to weave in. And I'm going to pull it down tight. I'm holding it while I pull it because I don't want anything to be left up in there. And I'm going to cut it at the base. And that is it. And we're going to do that over the whole entire project. For the numbers for how much yarn totally I use, and of course I'm going to go a little bit over, just counting 2 skeins for each color. That'll be in the description box. Other than that, you guys, thank you for coming to the corner. I hope you enjoyed this project. Check out my Facebook page and go ahead and spam me with all the pictures of items that you make from my tutorials. I would absolutely love to see your baby blankets or your throw blankets or your queen size blankets or your whatever size blanket you make with the shell. I would absolutely adore to see them. And thank you all for creating with me, and I will see you next time on the corner.